ExamPrep.School. Texas General Lines Property and Casualty Insurance Exam. Exam code INSTX-PC06. There are 4 practice exams in this series. This video covers Practice Exam 1. The first 20 questions are free. In this video, we will be covering the following major categories for Practice Exam 1. Insurance terms and related concepts. Policy provisions and contract law. Statutes and rules common to P and C. Statutes and rules pertinent to P and C. Types of policies. Types of policies, bonds, and related terms. Let's walk through the format. I'll read each question and its choices. Let's get started. Question 1. Under the standard unendorsed H03 policy, if the insured complies with the policy's 80% coinsurance requirement for coverage A, dwelling losses are settled on which valuation basis? A. Actual cash value. B. Replacement cost without deduction for depreciation. C. Market value at the time of loss. D. Replacement cost less depreciation. A countdown circle appears in the top right. Once it completes, the answer is revealed. You can pause at any time if you'd like longer to think. If you'd like additional practice covering more topics, see the description for our book. The correct answer is B. This option is correct because when the H03 coinsurance requirement is met, coverage A losses are paid at full replacement cost without depreciation deductions. Reason A is not correct. Actual cash value applies when the coinsurance requirement is not satisfied, not when it is met. Reason C is not correct. Market value is not used by the standard H03 for loss settlement. Reason D is not correct. Replacement cost less depreciation describes an actual cash value settlement, not full replacement cost. Question 2. Under an H03 policy, what is the standard limit for coverage B, other structures, in relation to the coverage A limit? A. 5% of the coverage. A limit. B. 10% of the coverage A limit. C. 25% of the coverage A limit. D. 100% of the coverage A limit. The correct answer is B. This option is correct because the H03 automatically provides 10% of the coverage, A limit for other structures unless increased by endorsement. Reason A is not correct. 5% is often a coinsurance threshold, but not the default for other structures. Reason C is not correct. 25% is not used as the standard other structures limit under H03. Reason D is not correct. 100% equals the full dwelling limit and is not the default for other structures. Question 3. Under the standard H03 policy, what is the maximum limit for theft of firearms under coverage C special limits? A. $1,500. B. $2,500. C. $5,000. D. $10,000. The correct answer is B. This option is correct because the H03 special limits table caps theft of firearms and related equipment at $2,500 per occurrence. Reason A is not correct. $1,500 is the sublimit for jewelry and furs, not firearms. Reason C is not correct. $5,000 exceeds any default sublimit for personal property categories. Reason D is not correct. $10,000 is not a default coverage C special limit under an H03. Question 4. Under the standard H03 policy, what is the default limit for coverage D, loss of use, expressed as a percentage of the coverage A limit? A. 10%. B. 20%. C. 30%. D. 40%. The correct answer is B. This option is correct because coverage D automatically provides 20% of the dwelling limit for additional living expense and fair rental value. Reason A is not correct. 10% is the default limit for other structures, not loss of use. Reason C is not correct. 30% may be available by endorsement, but is not the standard limit. Reason D is not correct. 40% exceeds the policy's default loss of use percentage. Question 5. Which homeowner policy form provides open perils coverage for both the dwelling and personal property? A. HO2 broad form. B. HO3 special form. C. HO4 contents broad form. D. HO5 comprehensive form. The correct answer is D. This option is correct because the HO5 provides open perils coverage on both the dwelling and personal property without naming specific perils. Reason A is not correct. HO2 is a named peril form for both dwelling and personal property. Reason B is not correct. HO3 is open peril for the dwelling, but named peril for personal property. Reason C is not correct. HO4 covers personal property on a named peril basis only, as a tenant policy. Question 6. A tenant named Sarah lives in a 4-unit apartment building and has a partial ownership interest in the building as part of a housing cooperative. She wants to purchase an HO4 renter's policy. Which eligibility requirement for HO4 policies would disqualify her from obtaining coverage? A. The dwelling must be occupied by no more than 4 families. B. The dwelling must be a single-family home. C. The insured must occupy the premises as a principal residence. D. The insured must not own any part of the dwelling. The correct answer is D. The HO4 policy is designed for tenants and prohibits any ownership interest in the insured dwelling, so having a partial ownership interest disqualifies coverage. Reason A is not correct. Limiting occupancy to no more than 4 families is met in this scenario since it is a 4-unit building. Reason B is not correct. An HO4 policy covers apartments and multi-unit dwellings up to 4 families, not just single-family homes. Reason C is not correct. Occupying the premises as a principal residence is satisfied by the tenant status. Question 7. A homeowner with an HO8 policy insures a 100-year-old historic cottage. After a windstorm destroys the original plaster walls, the insurer agrees to replace them using modern drywall, rather than matching the original plaster style. Which valuation method is the insurer applying under the HO8 policy? A. Actual cash value. B. Extended replacement cost. C. Market value. D. Functional replacement cost. The correct answer is D. Functional replacement cost in an HO8 policy pays to replace damaged items with modern equivalents rather than restoring original or historic materials. Reason A is not correct. Actual cash value covers depreciation but does not address replacing with modern materials. Reason B is not correct. Extended replacement cost provides a percentage above limit but does not define using modern materials. Reason C is not correct. Market value reflects what a buyer would pay, not the replacement cost method. Question 8. An insurer writes an HO3 policy naming National Bank as mortgagee. The insurer decides to cancel the policy for non-payment of premium and sends the homeowner a cancellation notice, but neglects to notify National Bank. National Bank discovers the policy was canceled only after a fire loss. Which duty did the insurer fail to perform under the mortgage clause? A. Advise the mortgagee of all claim payments. B. Supply a duplicate policy to the mortgagee upon request. C. Obtain a release from the mortgagee before settlement. D. Provide advance notice to the mortgagee prior to cancellation. The correct answer is D. Under the mortgagee clause, the insurer must notify the mortgagee in advance of any cancellation, and failure to provide required notice breaches that duty. Reason A is not correct. Notification of claim payments does not substitute for required cancellation notice. Reason B is not correct. Supplying a duplicate policy is optional and not related to cancellation. Notice requirements. Reason C is not correct. A release from the mortgagee before settlement is not mandated by the mortgage clause. Question 9. After a fire ruins part of her home's kitchen, which had a coverage limit of $250,000, the insured files a claim under her HO3 policy. She carries ordinance or law additional coverage at 10% of the dwelling limit. If code upgrades to meet current building standards add $22,000 in compliance costs, how much will the ordinance or law endorsement pay? A. $25,000. B. $22,000. C. $20,000. D. $250,000. The correct answer is B. Ordinance or law. Additional coverage provides up to 10% of the dwelling limit for code upgrades, but only actual incurred compliance costs are paid, which in this case is $22,000. The correct answer is to wear non-slip boots, test decking stability, and employ a properly anchored fall arrest harness to address both slip and fall hazards while evaluating structural soundness. Reason C is not correct. This is below the incurred cost and does not reflect the actual upgrade expense. Reason D is not correct. This equals the full dwelling limit and far exceeds the allowable additional coverage. Question 10. A dwelling policy taken effect on January 1st, 2023 carries a $200,000 limit with an inflation guard endorsement that increases coverage 4% on each policy anniversary. A covered windstorm on July 1st, 2024 causes $210,000 in damage. What is the dwelling limit applicable at the time of loss? A. $208,000. B. $200,000. C. $204,000. D. $216,000. The correct answer is A. The inflation guard endorsement increases the limit by 4% on January 1st, 2024, raising it from $200,000 to $208,000. No further increase applies until the next anniversary. Reason B is not correct. This reflects the original limit without adjustment for inflation guard. Reason C is not correct. This represents a 2% adjustment and not the full annual 4% increase. Reason D is not correct. This applies 2 full years of increases incorrectly prior to the second anniversary. Question 11. Under a DP2 broad form policy, a heavy ice storm causes a tree branch to break and damage the insured's detached garage. Which peril in the DP2 policy covers this loss? A. Weight of ice, snow, or sleet. B. Accidental discharge of water. C. Vandalism or malicious mischief. D. Falling objects. The correct answer is D. Damage from a tree branch that breaks and falls onto a structure is covered under the falling objects peril in the DP2 broad form. Reason A is not correct. Weight of ice, snow, or sleet covers collapse, not damage by a fallen object. Reason B is not correct. Accidental discharge of water pertains to plumbing or appliance water leaks. Reason C is not correct. Vandalism or malicious mischief covers intentional damage, not storm-related events. Question 12. A homeowner with a DP1 basic form policy experiences damage from a windstorm that results in broken windows. Which statement about coverage applies? A. Fire damage would be covered, but windstorm damage is excluded. B. Lightning damage is covered alongside windstorm damage. C. Windstorm damage is excluded under the basic form. D. Internal explosion damage would be excluded. The correct answer is C. The DP1 basic form covers only fire, lightning, and internal explosion. Windstorm is not one of the named perils and is therefore excluded. Reason A is not correct. Fire is covered, but that does not mean windstorm is included. Reason B is not correct. While lightning is covered, DP1 does not cover windstorm losses. Reason D is not correct. Internal explosion is covered under DP1, not excluded. Question 13. Under the building coverage, co-insurance clause of a commercial property policy, the insurer's payment for a partial loss is determined by which formula? A. Insurance carried divided by insurance required, multiplied by loss amount, then subtract deductible. B. Insurance required divided by insurance carried, multiplied by loss amount, then subtract deductible. C. Insurance carried divided by building value at time of loss, multiplied by loss amount, then subtract deductible. D. Loss amount minus deductible without applying any coinsurance ratio. The correct answer is A. The coinsurance provision requires multiplying the loss by the ratio of insurance carried to insurance required, then subtracting the deductible. Reason B is not correct. Reversing the ratio would overstate the payment, which is incorrect due to the coinsurance formula definition. Reason C is not correct. Using the building value instead of the required insurance amount misapplies the coinsurance ratio. Reason D is not correct. Subtracting the deductible without applying the coinsurance ratio ignores the coinsurance requirement. Question 14. Under the business personal property off-premises extension, in a commercial property policy, coverage for property removed from the described premises applies up to which limit? A. 10% of the covered limit, or $10,000, whichever is less. B. 25% of the covered limit, or $10,000, whichever is less. C. 10% of the covered limit, or $25,000, whichever is less. D. 25% of the covered limit, or $25,000, whichever is less. The correct answer is A. The off-premises extension provides coverage up to 10% of the coverage limit, or $10,000, whichever amount is less. Reason B is not correct. Increasing the percentage to 25% misstates the standard off-premises limit. Reason C is not correct. Raising the dollar cap to $25,000 exceeds the CPP's prescribed maximum. Reason D is not correct. Both increasing the percentage and dollar cap contradict standard policy terms. Question 15. Under the extra expense additional coverage of a commercial property policy, expenses qualify if they are incurred to do which of the following? A. Reduce or avoid the suspension of operations following a covered loss. B. Replace normal operating supplies used in routine business. C. Fund employee bonuses unrelated to loss recovery. D. Finance planned capital improvements. The correct answer is A. Extra expense coverage applies only to expenses incurred to prevent or minimize the suspension of business operations after a covered loss. Reason B is not correct. Routine supply replacements are part of normal operating expenses, not extra expenses. Reason C is not correct. Employee bonuses unconnected to recovery do not mitigate business interruption. Reason D is not correct. Capital improvements are not incurred to address loss-related suspension of operations. Question 16. Under the business income with extra expense coverage form of the CPP, the insurer's monthly limit of liability equals which of the following fractions of the annual limit? A. 1/12. B. 1/6. C. 1/9. D. 1/24. The correct answer is A. The monthly limit of liability under business income with extra expense is 1 divided by 12 of the annual limit, ensuring equal monthly coverage allocation. Reason B is not correct. 1/6 would allocate 2 months of coverage overstating the monthly limit. Reason C is not correct. 1/9 incorrectly divides the annual limit and does not match policy terms. Reason D is not correct. 1/24 would be half the actual monthly allocation, understating coverage. Question 17. When the agreed value optional coverage is selected in a commercial property policy, how is the coinsurance requirement modified? A. The coinsurance requirement is waived. B. The coinsurance percentage is doubled. C. Coinsurance applies only to business personal property. D. It is replaced by a depreciation schedule. The correct answer is A. Selecting the agreed value option waives the coinsurance requirement, allowing full payment up to the agreed amount without penalty. Reason B is not correct. Doubling the percentage contradicts the purpose of agreed valuation, which is to eliminate coinsurance penalties. Reason C is not correct. Coinsurance is not limited to business personal property under this endorsement. Reason D is not correct. Depreciation schedules do not replace the coinsurance clause under agreed value coverage. Question 18. A fire damages a vintage commercial storefront. After rebuilding, the insured must spend an additional $45,000 to upgrade walls, wiring, and plumbing to comply with current municipal codes. Which endorsement would cover these extra ordinance upgrade costs? A. Vacancy permit endorsement. B. Protective safeguards endorsement sprinkler warranty. C. Building ordinance endorsement, CP0405. D. Spoilage coverage endorsement, CP0440. The correct answer is C. The Building Ordinance Endorsement CP0405 specifically covers the increased cost of construction required to bring a damaged structure into compliance with current building codes. Reason A is not correct. This endorsement waives vacancy conditions, not code upgrade expenses. Reason B is not correct. This endorsement focuses on sprinkler system maintenance, not ordinance compliance. Reason D is not correct. This endorsement covers perishable goods spoilage, not structural code upgrades. Question 19. A renovated retail space remains unoccupied for 75 days during an extended refit, violating the standard vacancy provisions. Which endorsement should be added to maintain coverage during this renovation period? A. Building Ordinance Endorsement, CP0405. B. Vacancy Permit Endorsement Commercial Property. C. Spoilage Coverage Endorsement, CP0440. D. Peak Season Endorsement, BPAPN. The correct answer is B. The Vacancy Permit Endorsement Commercial Property temporarily modifies vacancy provisions, allowing coverage to continue when a building remains empty for a specified period. Reason A is not correct. This endorsement addresses code upgrade costs, not vacancy conditions. Reason C is not correct. This endorsement ensures perishable stock spoilage, not unoccupied buildings. Reason D is not correct. This endorsement adjusts limits for seasonal inventory changes, not vacancy. Question 20. After a minor fire, the insurer discovered the protected sprinkler system had not been inspected in 2 years. Which endorsement warrants compliance with sprinkler maintenance requirements? A. Vacancy Permit Endorsement Commercial Property. B. Protective Safeguards Endorsement Sprinkler Warranty. C. Building Ordinance Endorsement, CP0405. D. Peak Season Endorsement, BPAPN. The correct answer is B. The Protective Safeguards Endorsement Sprinkler Warranty requires the insured to maintain and test fire protection equipment, such as sprinklers, to keep coverage intact. Reason A is not correct. This endorsement adjusts vacancy provisions, not protective safeguards obligations. Reason C is not correct. This endorsement covers code upgrade costs, not equipment maintenance. Reason D is not correct. This endorsement changes coverage limits for seasonal inventory, not sprinkler upkeep. Enjoyed this practice test? Tap like, hit subscribe, and share it with a classmate. Got a question we should tweak? Comment below, we read them all. Find full practice exam books in the description or at ExamPrep.School.